Paul fell in love with his secretary in the 3rd year of our marriage. For her, he was willing to break ties with his family, abandon his wife and daughter. On the day he left, he knelt all night in front of the ancestral tablets and left all the money to me and our daughter. I'm sorry for you both, but I can't help it. I love her, and I can give up everything for her. I won't come back again. Family background and wealth are nothing but shackles to me. Living in a family with money but no love, call it my misfortune. If I can't be with the one I truly love, then what's the point of being alive? I glanced at him, decisively signed the divorce agreement, and accepted all the money. Love, full of holes and cracks. Better to give it up. Chapter 1. At my daughter's first birthday future choosing ceremony, she ignored the priceless treasures placed before her. Instead, trembling, she stood up and reached for a business autobiography written by Paul's father. The guests burst out laughing. Her grandfather's old friend teased, "Looks like this little one will carry on her grandfather's legacy someday." That's right. She went straight for the most valuable thing. Her grandfather's face bloomed with joy. He hugged Adam tightly and, together with her grandmother, played with her happily. At this moment, Paul's aunt, smiling, took the not-so-thick book from Adam's hands and placed it on a tall table nearby. Come on, let's see whether the child truly likes her grandfather's book, or if it was just because the book was closest. I glanced at her without comment. Paul's aunt had once tried to introduce her goddaughter to Paul, but she overestimated herself. Paul's family had firmly rejected her proposal and chose to arrange a marriage with my family instead. She dared not complain to Paul's family. But she never liked me. I had given her too much face before, choosing peace over conflict. I never thought she would dare cause trouble at my daughter's ceremony today. The book was now placed on a table much higher than my daughter. Adam looked up at it, then at her grandfather, with confusion in her eyes. Paul's aunt laughed. Now she can't reach it. Can she? Adam still needs to grow up before she can have it. Annoyed, I was about to speak when I saw my daughter stretch her tiny hand toward the table. Reaching the book was nearly impossible. Her hand was nowhere near the height of the table. Yet the next second, she did something that stunned everyone. She tugged at the nearly floor-length antique hand-woven tablecloth, then stepped back, pulling it down with all her strength. The cloth fell to the ground, and the book slid down with it. Adam picked up the book with a smile, then waddled like a little penguin back into her grandfather's arms. Paul's aunt was dumbfounded. This child, really quite clever. Indeed, very clever. Ha ha ha. Her grandfather's face wrinkled with laughter. My precious granddaughter, I love her so much. Ha ha ha. Adam, let Grandpa take a good look at you. The guests were still in shock. My mother-in-law stood up and spoke to Paul's aunt, honestly. Why would you make things difficult for a child? Paul's aunt's face turned crimson, and she muttered a few polite words. The matter was dropped. Paul and I stood on the edge of the gathering. Most of those crowding inside were relatives and friends of our parents. The atmosphere was lively, filled with chatter. I'll be leaving soon, Paul said softly beside me. I gave him a glance. How thoughtful of you. To make a special trip for Adam's ceremony. It must have been hard, taking time away from your beloved mistress. Paul frowned at me. Chapter 2. Leaving the banquet hall full of guests, Paul and I went outside to a quieter place. The old mansion was vast, with Chinese garden designs everywhere. You didn't need to speak to me like that just now. People naturally fall out of love. I simply prefer her type. What does your preference have to do with me? Do you need to emphasize it to me again? Even looking at Paul annoyed me. If you have the ability, then marry her. Why compare her to me? Paul fell silent, his face dark with displeasure. I was about to head back when he suddenly grabbed my arm. Sandra, what will it take for you to willingly tell our parents about the divorce? You're the one who did wrong. You're the one who got another woman pregnant. Why should I be the one to bring it up? Just so I can take the scolding in your place? Paul looked at me helplessly. Sandra, you really don't need to drag this out with me. Separating would be better for both of us. Do you really feel happy staying in this house every day, knowing your husband's heart belongs to someone else? Why can't we part peacefully? My company is preparing to go public, and our two families have billions in cooperation at stake. Why should I walk away from money? Is money all you see now? Sandra? You've never lacked money since childhood. You're your parents' only daughter. Do you really need just a little more? Have you fallen into the money pit? Chapter 3. Paul softened his tone, speaking to me politely and reasonably. Our families are equally wealthy. How could you possibly lack money? Living comfortably is what truly matters. Paul could be considered a fairly good partner. If only he hadn't cheated. He came from a good family, attended prestigious schools his whole life, and never experienced any real hardship. It was precisely because his life had been so smooth for more than 20 years, without setbacks, that he developed such a good temper, always polite and courteous to everyone. Even when he met people he disliked or looked down on, he would only exchange a few perfunctory pleasantries, just enough to save face. Maybe because his life was too smooth and lacking in excitement. He strayed. Paul betrayed our marriage while I was pregnant and got involved with his secretary. A man who had once seemed decent was now consumed with only one thought: how to marry his so-called true love into the family. She can't get in, and you can't get out, unless you're willing to give up everything from your family. I laid out the facts plainly. I wanted money, all of his money. Paul's family cared too much about appearances. Divorce was a taboo, and without my agreement, it would be hard for him to get what he wanted. You think I'm so shallow? Paul even smiled a little. Sandra, whether I have money or not makes little difference to me. Unlike you and my parents, I don't see money as everything. I smiled calmly. Sandra, think carefully. Don't you feel that in families like ours, the choices are actually quite limited? We don't even have the right to pursue true love. I once thought you, like me, would have the courage to resist, but instead you, Paul sighed. Today, when I looked at Adam, I felt truly sorry for her, even though she was born at the very top of the pyramid, with a family background that others envy. Most likely she will never be happy, because in the future, her choices will be so few. Are you joking? I took a deep breath, forcing down my anger. Too few choices? Sorry. I don't understand what you mean. Paul, did you grow up drinking dew from the mountaintops? You're so out of touch with reality it's laughable. Since childhood, you've lived in the best hillside mansions, casually overlooking everything from a peak estate. The restaurants you dined at gave you sweeping views of Victoria Harbor. Without your parents' wealth, without your family's fortune, would you have enjoyed any of that? You always had the best private tutors, the most prestigious institutions tailoring paths just for you. You studied in Switzerland at an elite boarding school, then at the most expensive private schools, and eventually an Ivy League university. I won't deny you put in effort, but without your family shielding you. Paul, do you really think your life would have been so smooth? The more I looked at Paul, the more ridiculous he seemed. You dropped out of Ivy League on a whim, then went off to Northern Europe to start a photography team. When that venture failed, you moved on effortlessly to apply to another top university. Did your parents ever give you too few options? Do you really think your life is tragic? For anyone else, anyone who had to support a family or lacked a wealthy background, it would have been impossible to live as comfortably as you do. Chapter 4. Was Adam's little stunt today something you taught her? Paul avoided confronting me directly, shifting the topic. His words only made me more irritated. Don't push me, Paul. I don't want to slap you on Adam's birthday. I didn't mean to say you were manipulative. I just think a child being too clever isn't always a good thing. If I ever hear you slander my daughter again, don't blame me for turning my back on you. Do you think I could have predicted that your aunt would pick on such a small child? I was standing so far away. Could I whisper across the room to tell her how to please her grandfather? Don't forget, Paul, that book was placed there only because your father decided on a whim. Then maybe I overthought it. I apologize. Who wants an apology from a fool? Save your words and think about how you'll explain this to your parents. I turned to leave. Halfway out, I glanced back at Paul. Idiot. Chapter 5. The atmosphere in the old mansion had remained pleasant. Paul's parents kept smiling throughout, until night fell, after the guests had left. Paul knelt on the ground. Before a storm breaks, the skies are always calm. Father, Paul began. His father's expression instantly darkened. I know the disgraceful thing you've done, and I know what you want to say. Let me warn you, once you bring it up, don't blame me for disowning you. Mother. Paul changed tack. My mother-in-law was taken aback for a moment, then clutched the child and sat beside me. Don't call me mother. Paul lowered his head, saying nothing more. Silence spread between us. Father. Paul spoke again. Asterisk, you should know me well. Since childhood, whenever I set my mind on something, no one has ever been able to stop me. Dropping out to start a business was my decision. Opening a photography studio was my decision. Even later, going back to school, that was my decision too. At first, you opposed all of these, but even without your approval, I still did them. So if I truly want to do something, you can't stop me. Asterisk. Now you're threatening me. Is that it? His father's voice wasn't loud, perhaps to avoid startling the child, but it carried undeniable authority. I don't mean anything else. I just want freedom. Paul was so foolish. It was almost laughable. Chapter 6. Asterisk, it's exactly because I've always given you too much freedom that you've step by step broken the bottom line of being a decent person. Do you really think you're so capable, Paul? Back then, when everyone opposed your dropping out, you didn't listen. Later, you submitted the paperwork anyway. You were free, left when you wanted, and I was the one who had people handle all the follow-ups. You said you wanted to start a business. I didn't refuse, nor did I interfere with your dream like you claim. I only said you were too idealistic, that you shouldn't approach everything your way. At the very least, you should consider whether the country you chose could even sustain your project long-term. But did you listen? You just bought a plane ticket and left. You had no money, no connections, no resources. I had no choice. For the sake of your idealism, I secretly found experienced people to help you. Otherwise, how could you have so easily secured funding? Yet despite how much I secretly helped you, you still failed, didn't you? You called home, complaining that the market environment wasn't what you expected. Your mother and I urged you not to be so reckless, that nothing succeeds overnight. But did you listen? You still didn't listen. Asterisk. Paul's face was full of anger. Asterisk, but I never needed your help in the first place. Even without what you did behind my back, I would have tried on my own. You and Mom are always like this, morally pressuring me. You say you're only helping me, not interfering. Yet years later, when I've achieved nothing, you come back to accuse me, to remind me of how much you secretly did for me. Asterisk. Chapter 7. Fine. Fine. His father let out a cold laugh. So according to you, everything in the past was our fault. We just had nothing better to do. And now? Divorce, such a huge matter, you've once again decided on your own. Do you feel proud of yourself? I'm still young. Why shouldn't I be allowed to do what I want? And what you want is to betray morality and cheat. Then I would rather never have had a son like you. But what use is there in saying this now? I'm only voicing my reasonable request. Which law says that once married, divorce is forbidden? I'll give up everything. Would that satisfy you? Paul turned and knelt in front of me. Asterisk. Sandra, I'll give up everything, okay? Everything in this family that belongs to me. I'll leave it all to you and our daughter. I'll give you both everything. Just let me go, please? Asterisk. I looked at Paul. By now, I no longer felt the hysteria and collapse I had when I first found out. Let me ask you one thing. Before our marriage 3 years ago, did you know her? Yes. Did you already like her back then? I just thought she was special. Asterisk. If you thought she was special, then why didn't you pursue her? Why drag me into this? If you already had someone else in your heart, why agree to marry me? At our first meeting, why didn't you say anything? At our engagement, why didn't you say anything? When our families discussed marriage, why did you agree? Is your freedom true freedom, while everyone else's freedom is just a joke to you? Asterisk. Sandra, you didn't love me that much either. So why are you reacting like this? Our marriage was just a family alliance. We could have ended things peacefully. Why ask so many questions? Is it only because my cheating embarrassed you? Paul. I called his name. What makes you think I didn't love you? If I hadn't, why would I have chosen to be with you? Chapter 8. Paul let out a sigh. Asterisk. But shouldn't you at least ask me whether I need your love or not? People are fickle in matters of the heart. I want to be with the person I truly love. You're free to pursue your true love as well. No one is stopping you, right? I just don't understand, Sandra. You've never lacked anything since you were young. You don't lack money. You don't lack love. So why do you treat marriage and love as such sacred things? Can't you just let go more easily? Asterisk. Adam suddenly burst into tears. So what? You don't even want your daughter anymore? She's pregnant. I'll have other children. My mother-in-law stood up with the baby in her arms. Asterisk, get up. Stop kneeling. None of us can endure your kneeling any longer. From now on, we'll treat it as though we never had a son like you. Asterisk. Mother, Paul raised his head. Please don't be angry. Can't we just talk this through calmly? Paul, you don't need to stand here glorifying your so-called love while demeaning me over and over again. I agree to the divorce. Satisfied now? I said coldly. His father stood up as well. Asterisk, your mother and I should have faced reality long ago. A man like you, who has lost even the most basic principles of being human. How could we expect you to carry on the family business and bring honor to the Paul family? Since you've said all you want is freedom, then be ready to give up everything this family has ever given you. Asterisk. I can sign an agreement. Paul offered. I'll transfer all the money, property, and shares under my name to Adam. Chapter 9. No need. His father cut him off. Asterisk, since you've decided to sever ties with this family, none of those things have anything to do with you anymore. You no longer have the right to decide. I'll reclaim everything in this house that belongs to you and redistribute it, transferring it to Sandra and the child. Not through some agreement you draft. Otherwise, what if you try to reclaim it later? Should Sandra and the child suffer harassment from you then? Asterisk. I took the baby from my mother-in-law's arms. Intending to coax her to sleep, Paul stood up, about to head toward the ancestral shrine. From now on, you're no longer a member of this family. You're not qualified to enter. Asterisk, I only wanted to kneel and find some peace of mind. There's no need for you to be so aggressive. If you truly don't wish to see me again, I won't come back. But after all, I'm still your only son. If you ever need care in old age, I'll take responsibility. Asterisk. We don't need you. We have a granddaughter. What use are you? Since you've said this, then I hope you keep your word. When you hit rock bottom in the future, don't come begging us. Don't even think about the money your mother and I will leave for Sandra and Adam. Asterisk, you're overthinking. Only businessmen like you reek of money, with every word revolving around it. You pride yourself on being a responsible father, but all you've ever given me is money. Spend your money, and you meddle in everything I do. In that case, I'd rather not have your money. Living in a family with money but no love, chalk it up to my bad luck. Asterisk. With that, Paul left. I kept questioning my own judgment of people in the past. Surely, my eyes must have been defective. Otherwise, how had I failed to see that he was a complete idiot? Chapter 10. Perhaps because she had just been crying, my daughter was now wide awake, refusing to sleep no matter how I tried to soothe her. A knock came at the door, holding the baby. I opened it. Standing outside were Paul's parents. Asterisk, Sandra, your father and I have discussed this. Our families live close by, and we've been friends with your parents for many years. It's our fault we didn't raise our son properly. If you're willing, after you divorce that disgrace, we'd like to recognize you as our goddaughter. From now on, all of the Paul family's wealth will belong to you and the child. That disgraceful son of ours is beyond hope. But we know you're a good person. You're capable, with business sense. Adam is already showing such intelligence at a young age. Entrusting the Paul family to you both, we'd feel at ease. Asterisk. My mother-in-law added. Asterisk, Sandra, I've truly liked you from the bottom of my heart. You value love and loyalty, and you excel in every aspect. It's Paul who isn't worthy of you. If you're willing, we can meet with your parents again. The adults of both families can sit down and formalize it with notarization. If you're unwilling, we won't force you. The money will still go to you and the child. Your father-in-law and I can guarantee Paul won't get a single penny in the future. Asterisk. I looked down at my daughter, happily blowing bubbles in my arms. Though she had lost the right to poverty at such a young age, she had gained joy. I agree. There was no reason not to. Chapter 11. Paul had always been efficient. It was clear he wanted the divorce finalized as quickly as possible. Early in the morning, He was already sitting in the living room, waiting for me. I had the divorce agreement printed out. If there are no issues, just sign it. There's an issue. I sat across from him, not even glancing at the document he had placed there. What issue? Paul looked confused. You haven't even read it. How do you know there's an issue? Of course there's an issue. Why are you sitting on my sofa? Paul froze. Don't be ridiculous. Sandra, this is my house. Not for long. I shifted my posture slightly, making sure I sat in the most comfortable, leisurely position. No matter what, this is still my home. My parents may be furious with me, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm their only son. No need to keep emphasizing that you're a man. I looked at him. We're all human. Paul glanced at me, then fell silent. He stood up, only to suddenly drop to his knees the next second. TCH, Paul hissed, struggling to rise but failing. Didn't realize you enjoyed kneeling so much, I said coldly, mocking him. My knees were bruised from kneeling last night. They're still numb. What's wrong with me sitting down? Do you really need to torment me like this? Didn't you hear your parents yesterday? This is Adam's and my home now. And you really believed them? Sandra, I finally see it. You're really shameless. Such a vast inheritance, my parents may dare give it. But do you dare take it? You act like you're not even an outsider anymore. Oh, you. Paul finally managed to climb back to his feet. He looked utterly pathetic. Chapter 12. Paul braced himself against the edge of the sofa, standing hunched over. Adam is just a girl. Do you really think, after my parents pass, that you and Adam will have the ability to manage such a vast family empire? I shot him a glance. Didn't realize you were so feudal-minded. I didn't give him the chance to continue and pressed on. Forgot to tell you something. Paul, I have a strong sense of entitlement. If my in-laws want to give it to me, I'll take it. I won't feel embarrassed. Also, I never waste energy on self-doubt, so stop stressing your bond with your parents. No one denies you're their son, but you wanted everything both ways. And now it's blown up in your face. That's on your own stupidity. Why shouldn't I accept what they give me? Isn't Adam their granddaughter? Paul, don't tell me you expect me to walk away with nothing but the child, leaving this marriage empty-handed? Don't be absurd. I'll take my daughter. I'll take the money. I'll take your parents too, from start to finish. You're the one being cast out, the trash discarded from this family. You don't need my family's money, do you? Even if you took nothing, you still have the ability to give yourself and Adam a wealthy life. Not everyone thinks as bizarrely as you. Who in their right mind complains about having too much money? Certainly not me. You're right, I don't lack money. My family, like yours, is immensely wealthy. And I am my parents' only child. But just because I already have money doesn't mean I should give up rights that I can claim. Adam is pitiful, having a mother so obsessed with money. Chapter 13. Sorry, I won't accept your baseless accusations or slander. With a mother like me, no one will be happier than Adam. I cut Paul off. Adam will have a clear mind and inexhaustible wealth. She will have countless paths to success, born into generations of accumulated family fortune and connections. She can pursue anything she wants, as long as it doesn't break morality or law, because she'll have endless chances to try and fail. Her family has both the means and the capital to let her be a happy person, and to pave the way for anything she wishes to pursue. That's just what you think. How do you know what Adam really wants isn't something different? Go out on the street and ask random people. See if they'd be interested in a life like hers. Sandra, do you know why I don't love you? Because you're just like my parents. All you see is money. Is that so? Then I should thank you for letting me see your true face so early, without wasting my entire life. I said indifferently, you're too calculating. Even if you pour resources into Adam all her life, how can you guarantee she'll turn out excellent? Can someone as meticulous and scheming as you accept it if your daughter isn't exceptional? I gave a disdainful laugh, finding Paul too idiotic to bother with. I already said, her happiness is all that matters. My daughter, do you think she even needs to struggle? She came into this world to enjoy life. Even if one day she becomes a baker, she'll be the happiest baker, with a complete and unique personality. Aren't you afraid that growing up in a single-parent family will damage her psychologically? You're overthinking. I stood up. Having a father like you would be the real stain on her life. Without you, she'll be better off. Chapter 14. To be honest, I thought for a moment. Asterisk, I find you ridiculous. Paul, if you truly lived in a wealthy family and were unhappy every single day, I could understand your urge to escape everything. Fine, but living in a family like this, are you actually unhappy? Asterisk. Asterisk, on the one hand you call money vulgar and look down on your parents' fortune. On the other, you enjoy every convenience it gives you, including, but not limited to, the funding and connections they provide, the respect and fawning you've basked in for the first 28 years of your life because of their power, and the bespoke suit you're wearing, the watch and cufflinks worth millions. So tell me, have you not benefited from money? You take all the benefits and then pretend you don't care. Don't you see how contradictory that is? Asterisk. Paul was silent for a long time. After a while, just as I was about to throw him out, he said, I'm sorry to you and our daughter, but I can't help it. I love her, and I'm willing to give up everything for her. You don't need to emphasize that. I don't care how much you love that woman. It has nothing to do with me. I had already suffered when I discovered Paul's affair during my pregnancy. I was in my final trimester, and he didn't hesitate at all when he betrayed me. He never once considered what would happen if I found out, whether anything might go wrong. For that alone, he deserved to die. I am not a forgiving person. He betrayed our marriage and his vow, so the one who should walk away with nothing is him, and the one who should get out and spend the rest of his life penniless is him. Every cause bears its own fruit. You reap what you sow. Born with a silver spoon, and still he insists on cultivating bitterness for himself. That's on him. It's all deserved. He has no one else to blame. Chapter 15. I won't come back. Family status and money, those things only shackle me. Paul went on, talking to himself. If that's how you feel, I should thank you. I hope you keep your word. The farther you roll, the better. Don't you dare come back. As long as he doesn't return, everything from the Paul family will belong to Adam. If I can't be with the one I love, then living is meaningless. Get out. I couldn't be bothered to hear another word from him. I'd put up with this for more than a year, enough. Before Adam was even born, when I discovered Paul and his secretary were involved, I'd considered divorce. But after thinking it through, it wasn't in my interest. If I'd done it then, even though Paul was at fault, at most I'd have gotten only half of what was under his name. His parents would never hand over the family assets to him so young. So for the time being, he didn't actually have much. It isn't a bad thing for my daughter to have grandparents who dote on her and can pave her way. So I didn't file for divorce right away. Even though I don't lack money, I won't let go of what I can reach out and take. No one ever feels they already have enough. Especially not when it comes to money. Chapter 16. What's more, if I had insisted on divorcing Paul earlier, his parents would never have stopped me. And in that case, everything would have been handed cheaply to Paul and that woman. They were the ones who made mistakes. How could I, like the guilty party, clutch my daughter and flee in disgrace? What rightfully belongs to Adam will not be diminished. I will take back every last piece for her. Over the past year, Paul's mistress Lisa hadn't failed to contact me. I never made a scene. I simply made sure my mother-in-law saw the contents on my phone. She wasn't ignorant, even with the faintest trace. With her connections and influence, she could easily piece everything together and uncover the other woman. It wasn't that she hadn't confronted Lisa before, but Lisa was greedy. What she wanted was to marry into the Paul family. How could she possibly give up on such a powerful tree just because of some intimidation and warnings from Paul's mother? So instead, she doubled down, trying to use me to blow the whole thing open. The ambiguous photos she mailed to the mansion, I never even looked at them. I just left them there. Over time, naturally, the butler or the maids would hand them to Paul's parents. As for the emails Lisa later sent, I would open them and then fan the flames further. I changed the IP address and resent them to Paul's parents, making it appear as though she had sent another copy herself. With enough money, it's never hard to find the right technical people. Paul's mother had given him private warnings before, but Paul had always done as he pleased. Why would he change his mind because of someone else's words? Patience is easy to wear thin. Sooner or later, even Paul's parents would grow tired of him, tired of the whole matter. And when Paul's so-called love for the other woman reached its peak, he would naturally be the one to bring up divorce. Once he put it into words himself, that would be the dead end of his own road. That was why Paul's parents had been so furious yesterday. It just so happened that Adam had been raised in the mansion for over a year, and her grandparents doted on her in every way. Anything that people invest their hearts into, they only treasure more and more. On one side, a granddaughter young enough to raise and nurture properly. On the other, a son already discarded like a useless chess piece. The choice was obvious. Paul's parents were never the sort of feudal elders who favored sons over daughters. Winning an empire is hard. Keeping it is just as hard. All they ever needed was a worthy heir. Chapter 17. Once all the divorce procedures were finalized, I tucked the fresh certificate into my bag. Waiting to pick Paul up was Lisa. She stepped out of the car, her face sour, probably because she hadn't slept well the night before. Paul's parents always meant what they said. They wasted no time reclaiming everything they had once given him. By last night, the only property Paul still had, one villa on the Peak, was officially taken back. I heard he was thrown out in the middle of the night. Where the two of them went afterward was their own problem. If I wasn't mistaken, the LV handbag she carried and the Chanel scarf tied around her neck were also bought with Paul's money. Every penny she spent, I would make her spit back out, including the car they had left before me now. I walked toward her, but Paul stepped in front, blocking me. Sandra, what are you trying to do? We're already divorced. You have no right to interfere in my affairs anymore. Lisa stepped back. I sneered and grabbed her. When you sent me those sex tapes of you and Paul, causing me to give birth prematurely, weren't you arrogant then? When you deliberately came to the hospital and told me to my face you hoped my daughter wouldn't live to grow up, weren't you oh so high and mighty then? I gave that wretch no time to breathe. I slapped her twice across the face. Take it as a gift. No need to thank me. Chapter 18. Paul froze in disbelief. Impossible? Sandra, what are you talking about? How could Lisa ever do such a thing? How could the two of you have even met before? I gave him 2 hard slaps as well. Never there when he should stand up, and always talking when he should stay silent. Thinks he's worshipping true love, but in reality, he's nothing but a fool. You think all this is fake? I looked him in the eye. If it were fake, how could you be on the brink of ruin this fast? I never wrong myself, nor am I someone who silently swallows bitterness. As long as Lisa dared to act, I guaranteed Paul's parents would know the very next day. If I didn't say it outright, I'd make sure they learned of it another way. In the end, everything the two of them did was nothing but courting their own destruction. When it comes to men, there's no such thing as cheapest, only cheaper. I glanced at Lisa's hand clutching her bag tightly. Clearly, your man is as cheap as they come. Congratulations on choosing a broke loser. I paused. I'm giving him to you. No need to thank me. Chapter 19. I stepped into the luxury car waiting for me, shut the window, and took the phone handed over by my assistant. How many camera positions are set up nearby? 28. My assistant replied. In total, 28 cameras, covering every angle. Good. When we get back, come with me to my family's PR department. We'll pick a few people and set up a temporary team to handle all future publicity about me. Understood. The company would gain traffic, while Paul and his mistress would lose every shred of reputation. As it should be. I'd said it before, I like win-win situations. And those who hurt me, I make sure to crush them completely. 28. A good number. Just happens to be my age this year. I picked up my phone and casually transferred $500,000 to each of my 3 personal assistants. Congratulations to me on becoming a billionaire heiress. Extra chapter. Maybe because life had always been smooth and effortless for me, with hardly any worries. Time seemed to pass quickly. The next time I heard Paul's name, Adam had just won a gold medal in an international physics competition. In the car, Adam clung to me endlessly. My dearest mom, since I'm so sweet, so outstanding, and tomorrow is my 15th birthday, please do my calculus homework tonight. I'm begging you, really begging. And what exactly are you planning to do instead? I pulled a bottle of her favorite drink from my bag. Nothing serious, but my friends insist on going to the racecourse this afternoon. That's my specialty. Today, I'll definitely be the center of attention. Don't make me laugh. Adam wrapped her arms around my neck. Mom, I'll always be your little puppy. I give up with you. Young lady, how old are you now? Still acting spoiled? I told the driver to change direction. I'm going back to the old mansion for lunch. Do you want to come with me? Or should I have someone drop you off at the racecourse? Sandra looked at her medal. Suddenly, I feel like showing off a bit. I'll go back to the mansion too. When we arrived, Paul's parents were already waiting at the door. Adam waved her gold medal around proudly. I'm ready, Grandpa. Grandma, I'll give you 10 minutes to brag about me. Go ahead. Start. Grandma laughed and pulled Adam close. At 15, and already 175 centimeters, Adam was taller than her grandmother. Come eat first. Adam, you'll get your compliments afterward. Whatever you want us to say, we'll say it later. Wait a second. Grandma, why don't you show me your sincerity by helping me with my English homework today? Please. I'm begging you. Let your grandfather do it. He has a meeting this afternoon. He can solve problems while attending the meeting. Not a bad idea, actually. Adam had inherited my competitive nature, always striving for perfection. With endless hobbies, soccer, skiing, surfing, she had chosen them herself. Rock climbing, horseback riding, golf, she loved technical challenges and enjoyed showing off her skills in front of friends. Music, calligraphy, painting, Adam wanted to learn everything, even if not to perfection. In her own words, bragging and flexing were the ladders of human progress. She didn't need to master everything. It was enough to know a little of each, just so she could fake expertise and play the part of an elite when needed. When I entered, Adam was drinking water and still talking nonstop. Grandma, you're too good at praising me. I love you so much. Do you know how deeply satisfied my vanity feels right now? I'm so touched. This loser here is overwhelmed with joy. Her grandparents were used to Adam tossing around internet slang by now. Grandpa, do you know how much I envy you for having such an amazing granddaughter like me? Grandpa, remember at the next ancestor worship festival, check the family grave to see if smoke's rising, otherwise. How else could you explain having such a wonderful granddaughter like me? Adam kept boasting away when the butler walked in. He said Paul had returned. Ah. Such a distant name. So distant. I hadn't thought of him in years. Over the years, it wasn't that no one knew about his situation. When Paul still had money, he'd always talk about poetry and distant dreams. People would listen because he basked in his parents' glow. Even if he did nothing at events, others would flatter him. But once his parents publicly disowned him, everything changed. He became a useless pauper. Naturally, people stopped tolerating him. First, because of his lack of real ability, even with his education, he never found a desirable job. Worse, his reputation was ruined. No respectable company would hire him. Then came the fact he could no longer afford branded bags, luxury watches, or Lisa's extravagant spending. When Lisa finally realized Paul was nothing but a broke loser, she fought with him daily, even hurling curses at him. And at last, Paul completely collapsed. This was only the beginning. Later, Lisa decisively aborted the child and became the mistress of a bloated middle-aged boss. Only then did Paul finally face reality. Alone and penniless, his life was miserable. Still, at least he never came to bother me and disrupt my enjoyment of life. Well, actually, he had tried. But before he even managed to see his parents, he was thrown out. Whether at the company or the mansion, he was no longer allowed inside. This time, Paul returned because he was sick, incurably sick, so he wanted to come back and see his family one last time. In the living room, my mother-in-law sat across from Paul, saying nothing. Then she went upstairs, took my hand, and said, "It's rather awkward. I don't even know what to say. After all these years without seeing him, I truly don't feel much for him anymore." I didn't respond. Paul was visibly emotional when he saw Adam, constantly trying to talk to her. But Adam wanted nothing to do with him. To avoid him, she clung to her grandfather or came with me to the company whenever she could. When Paul offered to drive her to school, Adam didn't even bother going to school at all. Paul grew annoyed. "Why are you being so willful? What's so willful about it? I just don't want to go to school. You dropped out once yourself, didn't you? Can you stop talking with the same sarcastic tone as your mother?" Paul stood in the doorway. He was no longer young. While thanks to wealth, I still looked as radiant as ever. After all the rotten things you've done, do you really expect me to treat you kindly? If you hadn't suddenly returned, we'd be strangers, and frankly, we barely saw each other even back then. Didn't we? Do you always talk like this? Don't you have any manners? Even if your life has always been smooth, that doesn't mean you can be so arrogant. How are we different? Don't forget, I'm your father. Of course we're different, Adam replied, scribbling on her Sudoku puzzle. Your starting conditions were a little better than mine. What do you mean? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you're smarter, or have higher EQ or IQ than me. What I mean is, you had a smart and capable father, but my biological father is a whole other story. Don't point fingers at me. You never raised me. What right do you have to act like an authority figure now? So ruthless at such a young age. Oh, please, stop trying to brainwash people with your so-called wisdom. Everyone here understands life better than you. Seeing no one in the house wanted to engage with him, Paul broke down and rushed at me. Sandra, you don't actually think you've lived a successful life, do you? And what about you? Do you really think your life counts as success? You've only ever cared about money. Better than having no money at all. Clearly, you've failed miserably. Adam has no manners. Children from single-parent homes always turn out flawed. There you go again, putting a halo on your own head, Adam said evenly, unbothered. I love my mom and grandparents. They give me money. They give me love. They're open-minded and they cherish me. Not everyone has that. I treasure it. You're the only one who complains. Adam, one day you'll see, money isn't the most important thing in the world. Ask yourself honestly, are you truly happy? Paul pressed. Adam choked on her own saliva. Asterisk what? You think I'm not enjoying life enough? My life's potholes are Maybachs. My destined hardships are Porsches. And the only bitterness I've ever tasted is iced Americano. You think I'm not happy enough? Asterisk. Her pen scratched furiously as she filled Sudoku squares, the paper rustling, the pen spinning quickly in her fingers. Ignore him, he's just sick. I stepped forward. Adam waved dismissively. Don't worry, Mom. My emotions are steadier than a sloth's. I told the butler to show Paul out. Since he couldn't be cured, better he stay quiet and save his breath. Forgiveness was impossible, but when he finally passed, I could help scatter his ashes. After all, he loved freedom so much, didn't he?